Guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Daina and I am a Philly-based birth and postpartum doula. I also specialize in helping moms virtually all over the country prepare for maternity leave and the return to work after leave ends. So let's get into this very special topic today. So one of the things that I love the most about being a doula, and a lot can be said for doulas, right? A lot of people say, well, doulas are not medical professionals. No, we're not. We're not. I did not attend medical school. I did not attend nursing school. So I never put myself on the same level as those who have. But I also understand that my work in this field is equally as important, and I'll share why. So a lot of the work that I do with clients, of course, is childbirth education, working with them throughout their pregnancy, preparing them for labor and delivery. I feel like one of the most important things, maybe number 2 on the list, is preparing them for postpartum. A lot of people don't realize that postpartum is equally as important of an experience as your labor and delivery, and really can dictate, right, the long-term outcome or long-term mindset that you have in parenting, the bond with your child, the relationship that you have with yourself, your family members. We can talk about that in another video though. But the number one thing I love about being a doula is, yes, I get to talk to you about, preparing for your birth, creating your birth plan, having expectations, being able to make decisions under the umbrella of informed consent. But it's the emotional work that I do with clients. And a lot of times when I ask intake questions or have intro sessions with clients, for the first time, I will ask them, what are you looking forward to the most? What do you fear the most, right? What kind of parents do you want to be? How do you envision your bond with your baby? These are real questions I ask. And the sign of a future great parent, a great mom, a great father, is when they have some sort of anxiety or fear. I am afraid of not being a good mom, right? I'm afraid of messing up this little person's life, right? Of causing trauma or repeating the cycles that I went through, that I've lived out in my childhood or my lifetime. And that for me is the starting point of how we get to work, right? Also the fear of labor and delivery. I talked about that in a previous video. I'm going to link that here because I feel like it ties in when we talk about mindset, but we also have to do the work. So again, I like to use myself as an example because I see me as a mirror to you guys. Before becoming a mom, before thinking that I would even be a mother, there was a lot of shame or embarrassment that I carried because of previous versions of myself, right? They always say when you know better, you do better. And there have been times in my life that I just didn't know any better, or the examples that were set for me on how to navigate life and how to survive what I witnessed, what I experienced, really molded me and how I navigated the world, what my mindset was, how I viewed other people, and most importantly, how I felt about myself. Now, I'm going to say this with love, and before I go on, I want us all to take a deep breath in and exhale. I didn't want to do that right in the microphone. That would sound horrible. Before I move on, I want to say we can acknowledge that maybe in some areas of our childhood, the people that were tasked with taking care of us, with raising us, whether that was our parents, the community, the village, extended family members, family friends, whomever, we can acknowledge that sometimes they fell short. Sometimes they left a lot to be desired when it came to being our trustworthy adults, our safe spaces. But as I said previously, when you know better, you do better. So I give a lot of grace and love that they did the best they could with what they had, with what they knew. And they felt like they were doing their best, right? Raising children in a world, especially if you're a child that grew up looking like me, a Black child in America. I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. Survival, right? Carrying on what was taught to them. Maybe the lessons were a little sterner than we would do for our own children. I was somebody who was spankings or beatings were a part of the discipline that I experienced. And there was also this is a trigger warning, So I'm gonna pause. There was also some childhood essay. I'm gonna just put that out there. So carrying all of that, and things become a part of your makeup, right? Now you can absolutely choose to let it continue to move with you in life, or at some point you realize, okay, some of the stuff is not serving me, right? The way that I grew up in survival mode was not beneficial to me by the time I got to adulthood. So I know the way that I was raised as a small child, I would say before the age of 5, I experienced and witnessed a lot of trauma and saw some things, experienced things where I just felt like, now in hindsight, my nervous system could never be fully trusting. And it went from kind of being like a scared little puppy to growing into being definitely not so pleasant young lady, young woman, and anger, right? Feeling like I was let down by some of the people who I felt like should have been more reliable, should have been there for me. And also just not knowing how to be reliable and not having a great example of reliability or non-toxic versions of love. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone in particular, but I do feel like, as a kid, when it feels like your people are not truly there for you or truly understand you, it's a very lonely and isolating feeling. And when you navigate the world, you can either get yourself in trouble by trying to find replacements of that, and that's a slippery slope, right? So if you're someone who has daddy issues, you might carry that into the type of people that you're dating, right? But I feel like it kind of did the opposite with me. I was just so closed off and hardened by life. And I don't even think I had like a terrible childhood, but I definitely have some scars, right? That I am now. We're talking about you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, you guys. Just within the few recent years, even before becoming a mom, right before becoming a mom, realize, I have to evolve, or I will leave this earth just projecting everything negative, and everything I feared in life was like coming true, right? Like, failures, which now I know better not to be afraid of failure, but you know what I mean? Failures, betrayals, fallouts. It was like seeing all the worst in people, or approaching situations by just thinking the worst of people would bring out the worst of people, if that makes sense. So flash forward to the day I became a mom, and seeing this this very tiny little baby. Thank goodness I've been in therapy, was doing the self-work, and decided this is not going to be her experience. The first rule I made was discipline, not putting my hands on this child. So I haven't, and I won't. But also the way I talk to her, and the way that I lead by example, how I self-regulate, right? How I deal with my emotions. Now, this is a work in progress, because it's not easy, right? When you are only used to one way of operating, sometimes it doesn't come natural to switch gears. So sometimes you fall back on your old habits, right? So when I feel uncomfortable, I can become very withdrawn and distant and separate myself, but that's not fair to my child. If you're an adult, I truly do not care. I will become withdrawn, and I'll talk to you when I'm ready to talk to you. But with my child, I cannot behave that way. And just the simple act of communicating my feelings, that was new. I grew up in an environment where if someone was upset, I just got the silent treatment, right? Until they decided they were over it and were ready to talk to me again. That's a really bad feeling coming from a child. It's not fair to do to anybody, honestly. But as a small child, it again, nervous system completely out of whack. So the whole purpose of this video is if you maybe had a childhood that wasn't ideal, or you have a past or, some actions that you might not be so proud of, you can move past it. You can still be an amazing parent. The fact that you're even concerned about it is showing me that you're an amazing parent. The first part of making any sort of change like this is pattern recognition. If you're recognizing the pattern, then you understand that something has to change. And I'm here to tell you that it's possible to change. I always talk about mindfulness and meditation, and I can give you a whole list of self-help books that I've read or listened to on Audible, YouTube videos. But I think the biggest thing for me that was life-changing is getting in with a very good therapist. The best therapist I've ever met with in life was someone I started working with in 2019, and unfortunately, because of COVID, couldn't continue. But just that brief period of time, us working together, was so transformative, honestly. I still think about things that my therapist and I spoke about, conversations that I can remember vividly, breakthroughs, advice, observations that were made in those sessions, that I'm able to now observe my behavior and say, oh, this stems from that. You feel this way because of this. You're acting this way because of whatever. It also helps me with navigating with other personality types, right? Not that I can assume why people are wired the way they are, but a lot of times I say, she probably feels like that because blah, blah, blah. Especially if I know like more of your family history and dynamic, I know your relationship with your parents. It tells me a lot in how you might view the world. You might surprise me though, right? I'm not perfect at this, but I do have a lot more compassion and grace for people because I understand everything stems from childhood. So just knowing that, it was so important for me. Once I found out I was becoming a mother, I'll never forget. I don't remember the exact date, but it was May 2020. And it was the week that the George Floyd video was released all out into the world. And I'd never watched the video in its entirety. Never. To this day, I've never seen the video. But in understanding the severity of it, and also it's like not my first time, being exposed to, this is how Black men are treated in this country or in the world. So there was nothing that was so like shocking to me, but it did feel different because at the time it was early. I didn't know what the gender of the baby was. I said, what if this is a young Black man? What if I am carrying the next generation of Black men? How will I raise my child differently to not be in a situation like this? Not that it was George Floyd's, fault that he was a victim of the crime that was committed against him. But you guys remember when it was all happening, people were saying he was calling out for his mom. Pregnancy hormone shout. Boo-hooing. I was boo-hooing. So throughout my pregnancy, I did a lot of journaling, a lot of letters to myself. So one of the traditions that I do every year for my birthday is I'll write a letter to myself, right? And I address it to me, and it's all in one journal. I address it to me, and I basically, say how the year was, what goals I have. But I started doing it more frequently. Started writing letters to myself and also to my unborn child. It really helped a lot with just processing, right? I would have nostalgic memories, talk about experiences that I wanted to have with my child. And it has really set the tone for my parenting and how I go about raising her, how I go about speaking to her, how I go about handling discipline, right? We all fall short. Sometimes, these toddlers are like Sour Patch Kids. Sometimes they just do the craziest things at the most inconvenient time. So I won't say that I've never fussed, but I've never put my hands on my child. Everybody has different beliefs or, opinions about whether children should be spanked or not. So this is not to argue with anybody or to bring up any debates. This is just my personal goal, my personal manifest. We will not be normalizing this behavior in her childhood, right? Openness, communication. I felt like as a child, I had to be pretty sneaky, right? because I always said my nervous system was out of whack, I didn't realize how long I'd walked around with that like looming idea of like, oh, I hope I don't get in trouble. I hope I'm not in trouble, right? Even the way my name is said sometimes to this day can kind of like make my heart flutter, right? If it's spoken in a specific tone or at a certain volume level, it makes me nervous. Like I'm about to get fussed at. Something bad is about to happen. I don't want her to have that. I don't want her to have that. So if you are an expectant parent, I truly, truly encourage you, especially if you've gone through some things, if you have some stuff in your past that you're not proud of, I encourage you to, first of all, acknowledge it, right? You shouldn't avoid it. Maybe going through that stuff makes you the person that you are now. Without having those chapters, it does not complete your book, right? You have to acknowledge and accept and also forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. But with the awareness of like, I did this and this is why, understanding what took you to that point. What was it that made you act out and behave in those ways so that you have a full understanding to prevent your child from having to make maybe some risky choices, understanding that sometimes when you make choices, bad choices, they have long-lasting consequences, but not even putting them in that position, keeping their nervous system in mind is so important for me, for my daughter to have a regulated nervous system, right? Anytime that I've ever fussed at her, I can just give her a look or I can count. Once I count and I get to 3 and I say like, I asked her to do something, she's not listening, I start counting. This is just my child. Every child is different, but it's surprising how effective it is. Like, oh, okay, there's consequences to actions though, right? I'm not just letting her walk all over me and behave any way she wants to. I guess you would call this gentle parenting, but I don't think I'm a gentle parent. I think I'm stern and I think I'm respectful of her. I'm also really mindful of not, again, destroying her nervous system because I just feel like mine was wrecked for many years. I also understand that while my child is my moon, stars, every planet in the solar system to me, she is a citizen of the world. And not everyone is going to think she's special. Not everyone is going to just be head over heels in love with her like me. So I'm raising her in a way where she is respectful, she's kind, she's smart, and we are not looking to other people for acceptance or love, right? I want her to be self-fulfilled. I never want her to be in an environment where her light is dimmed, not even for a second. Her personality is so big. Her self-expression is so unique. She's just a carefree, fearless, just bold, says hi to everyone, assumes everyone is a friend. She talks to another child for 30 seconds. She's like, that's my friend. I don't want to crush her spirit, and I don't want to put her in situations that I feel like would crush her spirit. So that means that we have limited interactions with certain family members because I have the memory of things from my childhood that I don't want repeated to her, right? Some of us don't evolve, honestly. Some of us will live many, many years with the same mindset, behaving the same way, and never, putting 2 and 2 together, never understanding the pattern of, well, the reason why I'm so miserable, the reason why I am not a very nice person, the reason why I have, the majority of my interactions with other people are negative is because of what I am projecting out into the world. Sometimes people will never come to the conclusion, right? So again, give them love and grace for doing the best that they can with what they have and the limited knowledge that they know, right? I call it low vibrational behavior. I can love you from a distance, but I don't have to expose my child to it. So when you understand that, it takes so much weight off, right? You don't have to be in a space where you feel like you're always on guard. You're always, watching, looking around to see. I was very much like, I don't want certain conversations being had around her. I don't want certain things said to her. And I got pretty defensive sometimes, right? Especially when we came back to Philly and it was like certain family members that I remember growing up that could be very critical, that can be very snarky, that were into gossiping, just not having positive conversations. I don't want that to be normalized to her. I want it to be like your first thought about a person. If it's something positive, if it's a compliment, tell that person, right? But if anything mean comes up, don't you dare let the words come out of your mouth, right? She is so quick to be like, oh, you look so pretty, you look so beautiful, because that's by nature, I believe, who most people are. I believe. But when you are an unhappy person, you are always going to be looking for a way to cut down other people. And you are more than, you're well within your right to not like everything. Everything's not going to be your cup of tea, your personal taste, but it's all in how you handle it. You don't have to share. You don't have to share that you don't like something, especially with that person. So I found myself being super on the defense, right? Not having certain conversations. But then I just said, she doesn't have to be around it. We don't have to interact. And it feels so much lighter. It feels better. It feels freer. Now, obviously, I'm not getting parenting perfect. I am not the perfect mother. No one is. Try as you might, you'll never be the perfect parent. That should also be a relief. You can do all the hard work. And I want you to do the hard inner work on yourself. Because not only will it be great for your children, it'll be great for you and the rest of your life. And you'll really get to enjoy. It's almost like being able to be there for your child's, but also being there for your inner child's, right? Healing your inner child. And I feel like I could cry right now, honestly. But the work that I've done has really done a lot of healing for my inner child. Everyone always said, oh, you were always so quiet. You never said much. You were so easygoing. And I think a lot of that has to do with being traumatized. I don't think they realize it, but it has a lot to do with being traumatized, with being violated at such a young age. And again, that wrecked nervous system. So fix your nervous system and protect your child's nervous system. So I hope this was helpful. Do not be hard on yourself. Forgive yourself no matter what happened in the past. This child is coming into the world with a clean slate. When they look at you, they don't look at you for all the mistakes you've made, for how you may have treated people in the past. They are looking at you now, and you are everything to them. You are their entire world. So now is the time to do your work, right? Journal, seek therapy, right? If faith is what works for you, if it's getting closer to God, do that. Because your child absolutely deserves that version of you, and you deserve that version of you. If that's what you want, if that's what you're desiring. Sometimes becoming a parent, it doesn't really click to people, right? Sometimes people can just operate and keep going. But if it's on your heart, I really want to change. I want to feel better. I don't want to do the same things. I don't want it to be the same way with this child. I don't want them to experience the things that I experienced. Now is the time to get to work. I really hope this video was helpful. I hope you gained some sort of inspiration or insights. And know that it's possible. Know that it's possible to be the person that you wish you had when you were a child. Because your kids deserve it, and your inner child deserves it too. So I'm so excited to see how you blossom for the sake of your child and for the sake of yourself. I will see you guys in the next video.